So on April 14th of this year, we all witnessed exactly what happened with the Blue Origin spaceflight when we had those like Katy Perry, Gayle King, Jeff Bezos' fiance going up in space, and even more in there, and how it is now getting endlessly mocked, roasted, poked fun at for several valid reasons out there, and how we have a lot of critics, we have a lot of criticism toward not just Blue Origin, not just against Jeff Bezos, but also against those like Katy Perry and how she reacted when she actually came back down on Earth, and also others like Gayle King, and the overall way it was actually filmed. We'll have a lot more to talk about that, but what's interesting here has a lot more to do with Katy Perry and her overall response, her overall attitude/behavior toward the critics, toward those that are mocking her on all platforms of social media, and it doesn't seem to be going away at any point. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, the one major piece of criticism that I really did have with the whole Blue Origin spaceflight that took place on April 14th was, did you guys notice that the build-up to this thing had more recognition on television than the astronauts that were trapped in the International Space Station for a very long time before they were actually brought back on Earth? That, to me, was number one. Number two, when you had Katy Perry in the actual capsule, above Earth, you actually saw her looking into the camera instead of actually out a window. There were multiple things in there where it just makes you roll your eyes. The way that she also acted when she came down on the land, also overreacting, I think. But that's just, the slim things of everything else that went on. What's interesting here is that with the whole Katy Perry backlash getting worse ever since her space flight took place days ago, Katy Perry recently went off in the most, of course, ridiculous way possible when confronting the critics and those either trolling or roasting her across social media, including the official Wendy's Twitter account even mocked her. I don't know if you guys saw that, because they wrote back in a reply, "Can we send her back?" Now, Perry recently delivered the following: "We have to act more like human beings now in 2025, because the way people are acting to those like myself that took the courage and bravery to go up to space, I think is just wrong. The greatest honor is that I was able to share the same experience that so many astronauts did over the years, and exactly what it's like out there. And during this day and age of social media, I really am not surprised that nobody is taking that seriously. They seriously need to take a close look in the mirror and see themselves the way they appear when they are mocking women going up to space and risking their lives. When I came down, I had an epiphany that we are just so lucky to be alive. We are just so lucky to even exist. But for the entire social media platform and culture out there to mock this type of bravery is absolutely offensive, not just to astronauts, who also face the same exact risks, but also to those like myself who went up with other fine, brave women that took the courage to risk their lives to experience something that nobody else will see. I will never forget this moment, as we were the first women as a group to go into space. Getting to go up with Gayle King and the rest of the crew is something that will go down in the history books. And it's something that belongs to go down in the history books, because that's what we deserve, I think, as women. And I hope we get more women to go up into space, because it just shares such a great message to the world. This wasn't like an amusement park ride, and when I hear such comments like that, all I can do is push myself to correct everyone what it was really like. This was nothing like a theme park ride. This was a first step for women in space, and thanks to Blue Origin, I am confident that they will keep on doing that to make that part of their priority. So guys, let me just say one thing about that. Look, we already know that she's dragging identity politics and gender politics into all this nonsense. But what's interesting here is the fact that she feels that this belongs to truly go down in the history books. Now, in a very strange way, when you look at the outfits of Blue Origin, the way that they're suited, they look like the Fantastic Four, the way that it is. But when you look at everything else, right? Between Katy Perry and Gayle King, the way that they acted both on board and when they came back on land, that's exactly what people are poking fun at. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people now criticizing, believing that this thing was actually fake. I don't really buy into that, to be honest, at all. But one thing I will say about Katy Perry is that she is dragging identity politics, she is dragging gender politics more so into this entire equation, right? Really just focusing on women this and women that. It really should be about equality, right? Both men and women going up into space, right? But what's interesting here is that she says this is the first step for women to going up into space. Well, we already have, female astronauts, especially one that was trapped up there in the ISS for a very, very long time. That was just recently brought back, finally. I really gotta say, thankfully they did do that successfully, because who knows how long they would have stayed up there if they didn't really get on that as fast as they could. But what's interesting about this, yet again, is that we know that Katy Perry is fully aware about the criticism. She is fully aware about those mocking her on social media. I mean, this pretty much essentially confirms that, especially her comments about this not being a theme park ride. But interestingly, she goes on to actually further allude to the overall criticism. It's something I just value so much. Going up to space changes you, and to come back down to Earth, I am just viewing all forms of life right now in a totally different perception. It's something that will forever change my love for life. But those mocking and poking fun at the kind and brave women that went up to space, shame on them, because this was a moment of history. This was a moment of celebration, and we aren't really seeing that celebration that's expected for women, Instead, we are beginning to witness a new age of social media that just doesn't understand how important and dangerous certain things are and can be. So I ask everyone to stop the mocking, because it's a childish act toward the great courageous women that live in this country and on this earth. So again, I mean, there you have it once more. Katy Perry dragging gender politics into the Blue Origin spaceflight. Look, it's one thing when you bring an all-female group up into space. It's another thing to really double down on that and saying how this should just be done over and over and over again, just for the sake of doing so, right? But, like, with Katy Perry and Gayle King, and among others, Jeff Bezos' fiance that was on there, the photographer, everyone else, the fact that they essentially, at many points in times, right, if you guys do pay attention to the footage, they are always looking into the camera, especially Katy Perry, just looking into the camera instead of looking out the window, and that's another reason why she's getting mocked, right? It really seemed like it was all about them rather than them looking exactly what's down there. So, again, like I've said before many times, I think the better scenario of what they could have done, I think a better message would have been for these celebrities to maybe hand down a ticket to either an American citizen or anyone from that lives anywhere around the entire world to go on the Blue Origin space flight. I think that would have been a very interesting message, because look, if anything, the message that they're sending across is that we can go up to space except you. That's basically what it all boils down to as well, when you look at everything like that. But I think at the end of the day, Katy Perry is going to continue to feel very irritated about the criticism. She's going to continue to really, call it out and point fingers at the criticism. And I think it's hilarious that we have Wendy's even actually poking fun at Katy Perry, telling her, can we send you back? Can we send her back to space? The fact that Wendy's did that, we have a lot of people even going to Wendy's over that. I mean, it was an interesting marketing move on their part. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about all of this below in the comments. Everything ranging from Blue Origin to Jeff Bezos to Katy Perry and Gayle King and everything else in between. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.